Democracies and Republics, Federalist Papers 9 and 10. Federalist 9. In Federalist 9, Publius begins by turning our attention to stability. A firm union will avoid domestic faction and insurrection. Tranquility is thus the end or purpose of this regime. Notice that Publius explicitly returns to ancient Greece and Rome, the age of small city-states or classical antiquity. Ancient Greek and Roman city-states were governed as democracies. During the medieval period, most countries were governed by monarchies. How does Publius characterize the ancient democracies of Greece and Rome? Horror and disgust, agitation, distractions and revolutions, sedition and party rage, intervals of felicity, momentary rays of glory, transient and fleeting brilliancy. Publius here recognizes a problem with the establishment of a great regime. He deliberately takes the perspective of the ordinary citizen forced to live in an agitated and tumultuous society. He calls ancient democracies uncivil, literally barbaric. He notes that the disorder of the earlier democracies has led people to denounce not only the forms of republican government, but the very principles of free government as well. Notice that in this formulation, free government is a genus of which republican government is a species or subset. The new science of politics. Publius argues that the science of politics has improved to such an extent that the excellences of free government may be retained while its imperfections are avoided. The principal innovation in the new science of politics is the enlargement of the orbit of government. But what does enlargement of the orbit of government have to do with free government? In Federalist 10, in the opening paragraph, Publius refers to the spirit of parties which causes them to ignore the public interest and the rights of minorities. Publius tells us that humans are interested. They are partisans. The problem is how to harness partisanship to the public good. There are two methods of curing the mischiefs of faction: eliminating its causes or controlling its effects. To eliminate the causes of faction, one could destroy liberty, which is essential to the existence of faction, but the cure is worse than the disease. Or one could give to every citizen the same opinions, passions, and interests. This, however, is impractical because the reason of man is fallible. Publius argues that there is a connection between reason and self-love. No one is wholly disinterested, dispassionate, or selfless. Self-love implies that the origin of faction lies in the individual self, the unique body which has various and unequal faculties. To control the effects of faction, one could rely on statesmen to mediate conflict. Publius suggests, however, that it would be vain to suppose that such disinterested statesmen will always be available. One could prevent a majority faction from occurring. The real object of our worries is the majority faction. If a faction is a minority, then popular government is sufficient to control the faction. It will simply be defeated at the polls. Where a faction is a majority, it will be able to sacrifice both the public interest and minority rights to its own interests. Thus, the crucial problem is to protect the public interest and minority rights while maintaining popular government, that is, majority rule. How to prevent majority faction? Well, one could prevent people from having the same interest, opinion, or passion at the same time, or prevent the people, once from having the same interest, opinion, or passion, from coming together to act. The problem with democracies. Publius notes that pure democracies, by which he means a society consisting of a small number of citizens who assemble and administer the government in person, are unable to prevent the ills of majority faction. The small number of citizens is easily captured by the same passion, and the small land area is incapable of preventing the people from assembling together. The inevitable result of such small pure democracies is violence, turmoil, and death. A modern republic offers the solution. Hence, Publius introduces a republic, which he defines as a society wherein the government is delegated to a small number of citizens, elected by the rest, and where there is a greater number of citizens and a greater sphere of country than in a pure democracy. A republic, then, is a combination of size and representation. The final paragraph, Federalist 10, tells us that a Republican cure for the ills of pure democracy has been found. In small democracies, the ills of an unequal distribution of property are cured by the many expropriating the few. In a large republic, the multiplicity of interest breeds moderation and compromise, especially when filtered through popularly elected representatives.